Hello, good evening, everybody. I am Yashaswini Gupta from Snehadhara Foundation, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you joining us today. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this very, very important conversation. We know that when people sign up for a webinar like this, they're often coming with questions that are deeply personal, questions that sit quietly in families for many years before they are spoken out loud. Across homes, across therapy rooms, and conversations between parents late at night, there is a question that many families of neurodivergent individuals carry with them. This is a question about the future. This is a question about responsibility and a question about love. The question is, what after me? What happens to my child when I am no longer around to hold everyone together? Who will understand them the way I do? Who will notice the small things that matter? Today's conversation is not about presenting a single answer to that question. Instead, it is about exploring how we might begin preparing for the future while families are still present, and how assisted living can move from being a distant idea to a lived practice rooted in community. This conversation is being hosted by Snehadhara Foundation, and we're an organization founded in Bangalore in 2012 that works at the intersection of arts, inclusion, and community life through our framework Arts Practices for Inclusion, or API. Over the past 13 years, our work has reached over 70,000 children and adults, particularly children and individuals with disabilities and other vulnerable groups. And we've trained 5,000 plus educators and practitioners. Our work spans schools, universities, corporates, community groups, and arts practitioners extending across 8 countries over the years. Our programs include practitioner training through Arts Practices for Inclusion, community immersions, research, direct work through initiatives such as Uhuru, our assisted living training program. Through our work across education, the arts, corporate spaces, and community settings, we continue to explore how inclusive ecosystems can be built collectively. At the heart of our work is a simple belief that the arts can help build spaces of connection, of dignity, and belonging, and that inclusive communities must be created intentionally. To help us explore this journey today, I'm very happy to be joined by Dr. Gitanjali G. Govindrajan, founder and executive director of Snehadhara Foundation, and the heart and mind behind the program and its philosophy. Gitanjali ma'am, thank you so much for being with us today and for holding this conversation with us. Over to you for a quick hello before we begin.
Thank you so much. And for all of you who've joined on a Saturday evening, I'm assuming this is an important conversation for all, and we're going to keep it as dialogued and conversational as possible. So, looking forward to seeing what rolls up. Happy to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. So, starting off, first question that brings all of us here. Many families very quietly carry this question of what after me when they think about their neurodivergent child's future. Why does this question hold so much weight in their lives, and why is it important for us to talk about it now?
All right. The question, what after me, carries enormous emotional weight because it's not simply a logistical question on what happens to me or what happens to the family after the primary caregiver is gone. It's a question that sits at the intersection of love, responsibility, and uncertainty. Sorry. For many parents, especially in India, caregiving becomes a lifelong role. Parents often spend decades organizing every aspect of their child's life, be it education, therapy, the daily routines, and safety. Over time, they become a central anchor around which everything revolves. And because our systems for long term support are still developing, families often feel that they're holding this responsibility entirely on their own. So, when parents begin thinking about the future, this question naturally arises: more than what after me? The layers beneath it is, who will understand my child the way I do? Who will notice the small cues, the rhythms, the sensitivities, the moments when something feels slightly off? What we have observed is that this question often appears very late in the caregiving journey, when parents already are feeling anxious and exhausted. But perhaps the question does not need to arrive only in moments of urgency. It's something we can begin exploring much earlier, which is what we have tried, while relationships are strong, while preparation can unfold slowly and gently. So perhaps, yes, I think the real question is not only what after me, but also who is with my child after me. And that's where the idea of community supported living, assisted living models begin to enter into this conversation, not as an emergency solution, but as something we can slowly build, experience, and I think practice together as
Thank you,
well.
ma'am. So, if the question, what after me, like you said, is not only about the future, how should one begin thinking about it differently? What's the way to go about that?
So I would say, given our experience, one of the biggest shifts in our understanding has been this what after me question cannot be solved at the end of life, nor is it 18, which is a magic number where suddenly we would have these answers. It has to be approached as a process of preparation. Preparation when the families are still here. Now, this preparation does not begin with large institutional decisions. It's not that the first step is going to be how do I start looking for an institution or a space where my child will be supported. It begins with something much smaller. How do I start expanding the circle of care for the child or the adult? How do I allow other people to slowly become a part of the ecosystem around my child? Would oftentimes heard parents say that there's nobody who can understand the child like me. Very true. But what we want to do is, can the child or the adult be understood by others without you needing to decode? So, allowing the individual themselves to experience a life outside the immediate contained family environment becomes important. How do neurodiverse children and adults navigate shared spaces, relationships, routines? So, in other words, I think this preparation is not a single event, it's a gradual process of rehearsal. And it is through these small rehearsals that the journey of Uhuru actually began for us.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you, because you said that's how the journey of Uhuru began, could you take us back in time a little bit on how exactly Uhuru began? What was it always intended to be an assisted living training program?
Uh, Now we love coining nice names for all our programs. So, first of all, I think Uhuru began with just the word. The word means freedom to be. And we felt exactly that's what one needs to offer. Safety means giving someone the freedom to be as they are and slowly understanding what happens to themselves and the environment. So, Uhuru began actually as a model of supporting needs of children with disabilities through art based practices and interventions. So, that was the first model, like a day boarding program where we said, can we start collecting data of what the child needs from the child itself? So it began with that module first. Now, we discovered when automatically a space is provided to them where the methodology is non-threatening, because we work with music, movement, dance, drama, therapy as therapeutic tools. And we saw that, wow, they seem to be responding very well to these unconventional tools of learning. Then it moved to saying, can we make learning beyond walls? So the classroom spaces started being very restrictive, because I think every place was a classroom. The journey the child would make from the home to the center was a classroom, because the child is navigating so many things. I remember we used to have the door opens at 9, so that waiting between 8:45 to 9 outside for some was a classroom, because it was meeting so many goals of, say, impulse control, navigating themselves out. So we said this model has to be such that learning has to start being seen everywhere. So it gradually evolved. So the first step was, along with coming for a day boarding program, can we go and identify spaces where we can start taking the children out? So it began with maybe simple walks, maybe going to the neighboring kirana shop and just spending like 4 children and a facilitator going just to gather data. What happens? What are we calling a sensory overload? How is the child navigating so many inputs? Now, somewhere down the line, we realized that, wow, they're surprising us. I think our goals were not set at a very high goal. We need to raise the bar. And we said, let's start with a program called Thank God It's Fridays, which is Friday nights, parents come, leave their children at 7:15, at 7 in the evening, and come and pick them up on Saturday in the morning at 7 a.m. That's it. That was the beginning. There was a major breakthrough there for us, not in terms of how the children adapted, but the bigger learning was for parents of a child with neurodiverse needs. This was unimaginable. Like, how can my child be left in a space which is unfamiliar, which I don't know how the child will adapt? But the only way to collect data there is, you will know how the child will adapt if you leave the child. So I think a lot of preparation happened to tell parents, all right, can you do? So I remember the first overnighter had 35 children, youngest being, I think, 5 or 6 years, the oldest being 16, 17. Everyone together, a call for volunteers. We had over, I think, 50 volunteers. We had like this, how do we for each child, we put 2 volunteers. I think 3 hours into 10 p.m., we had 20-30% of the volunteers quite tired, trying to say, what are we supposed to do? What time are they supposed to sleep? So it was also interesting data for us to say that as a team, what were we ready for? Because we're ready. Are we ready? What is the structure? What are we expecting? But this whole Uhuru-ness, can we just let them be? Was, I think, the first requirement for all of us as a team. We went through a lot. Parents who were there outside, I think there were some parents, I think that would been the longest they've ever walked, because they refused to go. And I would keep saying, no news is good news. We've got the data that you want. Give us the favorite foods. At that stage, I think it helps setting the relationship tone right by saying, it's okay if he does not eat the meal tonight. So feed the child and bring, we can just do like an after party, pajama party. Let's take these steps one at a time. Let the goal not be on how the child did independently. What did the child do? What, all these all real questions which come from parents. I think the first night, like in the morning on, and every parent trying to say, is there any message? Some trying to connect with us to say, I forgot to tell you that his brush is here in the bag. And it was interesting to just receive their whatever tentativeness, emotions of how they're thinking about leaving their child with somebody else. And I think that 7 a.m. the next day morning was the most beautiful, where parents met this goal collectively, saying that we could leave the child. Now, incidental to that were almost all the children. We didn't have to call back any parent to take the child. We were quite prepared. There were children who were non-verbal. There were children who did have, it was difficult for them. But the difficulty may not be because it's an overnighter. It's a new format, newer people. But what stood out as a common denominator is every child, in their own way, navigated their way through. Some might have slept at 7:30, some might have slept at 2:30, but that was not important that night. It was important on how they stayed. From there, we moved on to saying, all right, that we did one night, let's extend it further. Parents were not, oh, like, how did it happen? We want to know what's happening there. So we said, great, we do another format. We do something called home visits, where each group of six, each parent hosts us for one lunch in your house. See how your child is building relationships. Can there be people who visit your house because they're friends of your child and not your friends? So I think the home visits, then we started writing to parents, not parents, friends, people we know in our inner circle of influence, some of our donors, to say, would it be okay to host a small group? We started acclimatizing them into various learning formats. And then from there, I think went on to we did the 4 day, Monday to Friday, Thursday format in our Nelamangla campus. The Monday nights, Wednesday nights was the first, where they would stay 2 nights. Through this process, taking parents along, then we went on to do the Monday to Friday. And this year is when we rolled out to say we should have different models in which we are trying 26-day programs, 7-day programs. All of this has just a precursor, because I think Uhuru for us is a program that shaped with small moments of experimentation. Nothing happened overnight. It started with an overnight stay, nevertheless, then a shared meal, then the social gathering. They were not attempts to create independence overnight at all. These were all small rehearsals. Rehearsals for the participants, rehearsals for the parents, rehearsals for us as a team. And over time, we began noticing something very powerful. When they're given space, when anybody is given space, and they're placed in environments where there is shared responsibility, then capacities emerge naturally. Then we got to see, slowly we started pushing it, saying, can participants wake up to alarms? Can we slowly involve some of them in preparing the food? Because the focus here was like how you teach any skill, the focus was teaching them the skill of independence. So at that stage, we are investing in this program to say, I am training in that only. And that required a buy-in at a different level for parents at that point of time. And it was not did not mean we're abandoning care, or we need to, it became a program that every child who was a part of the day boarding program did a Friday night. Parents, some of them readily agreed. And I think by the 8th or the 10th Friday night, they would write in to us saying, they would check. One parent wrote us saying, we checked our calendar to see which are the non-working Fridays in the year. So, just for us to start planning. So I think it was each step that led to the other. And that was the emergence of Uhuru as a program.
Sounds like an absolutely beautiful journey, and so much would have happened over so many stories in each of those moments, I'm sure. So, ma'am, I think the next question for me is that when we hear that the word assisted living is a very common word, we hear it all around us. And when we hear it, usually we imagine things like infrastructure, buildings, facilities, institutions where care is delivered. But I've often heard you say something very interesting, that assisted living is not a place, but it's a skill. What does that mean? What would that mean for you?
So I think it comes from my own personal discovery of Snehadhara, that there was a point when, at the end of every year, when a parent would come and meet us, along with everything else, was this question on who will manage our child after us? Will you be the executor of our will? How do we think about the future of the child? So at that stage, I felt, how do we assure the parent that the child will eventually be ready? It's like life throws surprises at us, but we do get the resilience. But it's easier said than done. We're not waiting for life to throw those surprises. So At one stage, I felt building a space, having them stay, these are things that are very critical. And rightfully, they are, because we do need spaces where we're able to create these spaces of care. So, when we decided to build the Snehadhara campus, one of the things we kept in mind was we were very cut off from community at large, in the sense it was an isolated space, a beautiful space with a community kitchen and, off the grid, a space where the space itself was very inviting. Can we try and challenge, um, just like, can the design lend itself to independence? We realized when we built that space that yes, there is a space. Openness does a lot. I think, having larger open spaces, not confining the children to rooms, having more spaces to move closer to nature. So we cracked all of that. So, but over a period of time and having done overnighters, I think now if Snehadhara's 13 years, we've done overnighters for 13 years now. Having done that, I realized that oftentimes when we're talking of assisted living, we are talking about infrastructure, but it's not primarily about infrastructure alone. It is human infrastructure. In many ways, if I had to explain it, it's similar to how we understand accessibility today. Accessibility is not only about ramps, lifts, accessible toilets. Of course, it is all of that. These are very important. They are physical infrastructure. But true accessibility also includes something less visible, which is belongingness, being seen, being heard, having a meaningful space within the community. So, assisted living works in a similar way, according to me. Spaces, infrastructure matter, but what truly makes assisted living possible are the skills that allow people to live with others in a shared life. Now, these are important skills. We have to train children in these skills. It's not the neurodiverse children or adults. I think it's important for everyone to think about where they are when these skills are spoken about. Communicating needs, how do we navigate routines, negotiating personal space, contributing to everyday responsibilities, building relationships with others. Now, for most parents, we might be able to look at where our children are in all of these skills, but within the confinements of, say, the home. What we've realized is that for neurodivergent children and adults, individuals, they're not automatic skills, not because they can't learn them, but because our environments often do not give them enough opportunities to practice them. Just like communication, social interaction, assisted living can be learned, rehearsed, strengthened over time. Now, when we begin to see it this way, assisted living stops being a distant place families might eventually find. Instead, it becomes a set of experiences that can begin much, much earlier, where individuals slowly learn what it means to live in communities. This understanding actually shaped our philosophy behind Uhuru. And here, when I say Uhuru is the freedom to be, freedom does not mean independence from others. It means freedom within the community, the freedom to be who you are, the freedom to receive support when needed, the freedom to contribute to a shared life in ways that are meaningful and dignified. So I think that's why I would keep saying that it's a skill. We need to be able to invest in teaching this to the children, presenting it to them. In fact, I don't think we needed to teach. We speak a little more in depth about the program, our findings have been that when you enter into assisted living as a skill with this in mind, automatically we just are collecting, it's like an audit. Children are able to navigate. We're not teaching them how to be with. We're not teaching one child when another child has a meltdown how you have to be. We're learning from them how they're navigating that space. And I think that's the beauty of thinking about it like a skill.
What an excellent philosophy to have, that something as core as assisted living can also be a skill. And if we treat it as a skill, what magic it can create. So, You talked about Uhuru, ma'am, and for anybody, if somebody is encountering Uhuru for the first time, what are like the key pillars that hold this model together? For a layman, what is the layman's understanding of what happens in Uhuru at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think that's an important question to answer because for those of you who are hearing us, it seems that this is all too good to be true. Can you tell us what you're doing? Like I would hear it when we say we work using arts practices for inclusion. Oftentimes, parents asking, understood music, movement, dance, and what do you all do? It took a while to say arts is that communicative language for us. Likewise, when we're saying train in assisted living as a skill, I think we're presenting something which I think is the need of the hour and also a different way of thinking about this. So, does this mean it's all just everybody coming together and staying in one place and learning to be together for 1 week? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because yes, they have to do it at some stage for us to know. But I say no because it is built on very strong pillars. Now, if I talk about Uhuru, we began articulating this, I think, only after doing a couple of years of having the residential, semi residential program. The first pillar is community living, where participants share everyday life. They cook together, clean together, celebrate together, navigate the rhythms where community life itself becomes a teacher. Put simplistically, if we have to eat together, then it's the responsibility for all of us to make sure that the space is set up. We're cleaning after food. Now, these are skills. It's not that we can't hire people to do this, but the learning is here because what's happening individually, a child or an adult is beginning to feel, yes, I'm a contributor. Yes, I'm also adding. The child could be non-verbal, but I may not be able. There's some children who like chop vegetables in a way that we may never need a vegetable chopper. There are some you can't leave the chopped vegetables because it will be finished. Then a lot of our dishes go without some ingredients because they love carrots and tomatoes. But I think the way they navigate themselves, there are some for whom I'm not going to do anything. Sorry, I'm going to be right here. Then give cups, give napkin, get them to wipe things. Everybody needs to feel I'm contributing into the system. That's what community living is all about. And that's a core philosophy where the community itself becomes a teacher. So if you come to the campus, you will say, we have a zero wastage policy. Please pick up your own plates and wash it. Oftentimes, we've had students who've come in saying, oh, you don't have waiters. And, but for us, for a child to figure out that, okay, here I have to do things on my own. If it were not for this sense of community, that would be very difficult. So I think that's one. The second pillar is independence training, like how you're teaching when we're saying training in assisted living. What does it mean? The independence here is not taught through isolated skills, but personal care. There's a bell that goes. Within this time, we have to get ready. Can you take care of your own belongings? Now, one would say, because we're talking of autism spectrum, there could be some who are at the highest end of the spectrum, they're very independent, who like to, along with theirs, manage everybody else's also. There could be some who don't believe in that at all and don't want to do anything. So, the way we organize them is also that a room which has four participants would have a combination of different capabilities. So, they learn from each other. So I think that part of it where it is managing your routine, making food choices, you come up and you serve, you are told you can't waste, and then we go through that, you come back again. There are times where we would say no, wait. So I think all of that is meeting their therapeutic needs but through independence training. Independence emerges here through participation. And the third pillar, which is also the curriculum, and if one says, what is the IEP and what's the plan? What do the children do? Whole day they can't be eating, cooking, sleeping. There should be something that they do, which is experiential learning for us. And here, it does not happen through formal sessions in the sense there would not be like we have a physiotherapist who's coming in, we have a speech therapist. No, it happens through a very living curriculum which grows out of our everyday life. For example, like when we did the January Uhuru for us, it was the time of Republic Day, and a lot of children came in, patriotism, devotional songs. Many of them love it and are so gifted with it. So something like that, the curriculum evolves from what the participants already know. Now it's interesting because I think for us in Uhuru, the important thing is whatever I'm telling you does not apply only to participants. It applies to the whole team. It applies to the educators who are teaching as well. So to expect us to know everything is not possible. And there has to be something in this for everyone. Then only it's inclusion, right? So there are great opportunities for the team, which I'm sure they don't look at. It's not always great, but of learning new things. Let's understand. So we said, let's pick up constitution means roles and responsibilities. We can use the preamble of the constitution. We can use that as a metaphor and together explore what is our preamble of living together. Now that allowed a child to stay connected to what was happening in terms of daily routine. For a child who was high functioning, we had them tell us everything about the constitution and the articles. So there is space for everybody. Festivals again became a very important theme for us. So we pick what is relevant in that particular month that the program is running, and make sure that once they go out of it, also they're able to see this everywhere. So we also create spaces where participants can showcase what they already know, like the morning assemblies. It is secular, there are songs of various languages, various religions. We also have playlists where some of them come up with their favorite songs and hijack the assembly time. So we decide based on the experiential learning is emerging from what they already know. We trying to access what they already know and offer them opportunities for learning, which could be in certain cases. There was some, like I think there was one who said, I'm writing a book, so I want to make my own images for the book. There was one who said we did book reading sessions to see what do they understand. So I think there is a balance of it which grows across all the participants who are a part of one program. And I feel that vertical integration of capabilities within a group has been an advantage for us. So yeah, mistakes are a part of the process. Sometimes we feel the plans are either very highly placed, or we should bottle it down a little bit. But I think each one has been a learning. And yeah, sometimes through conversation, sometimes through art, sometimes through just shared moments. I think these are the pillars of what I would look at, is of what Uhuru has. These are the three pillars.
Lovely. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm sure that for anybody who's watching us for the first time and understanding what Uhuru is, this definitely would have helped a lot. Now, before we go further, for everybody watching in, it might be helpful to go beyond the description of what Uhuru is and actually witness what Uhuru looks like. So, we would now like to share a short audiovisual glimpse of life inside the program, the rhythms, the interactions, and everyday moments that make up the community experience for the group. And as you watch it, we invite you, the audience, to not analyze or evaluate, just notice and just immerse yourself in what Uhuru is all about. I would request Palak to, yeah.
Straight up. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Jesus loves me. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Palak. What a beautiful video to look at and understand really what Uhuru is all about. I see all of the hearts receiving all of that. So, coming back to our conversation, Gitanjali ma'am, alongside running the program, we also know that you've been studying what happens inside these spaces of Uhuru. So, what has your research, what has the understanding begun to reveal over time? And why do you think it was important to do this research or gather this information and data in the first place?
So I think research for me has been a very important part of what we do, because the what we do sits in the realm of very qualitative shifts when it comes to impact. And this word impact is a very big word in the sense of making sense of what is the impact that one is having. So for us, research became very important because in many conversations around disability and long term care, we speak of assisted living as a future arrangement. But very little work has been done to understand what happens when individuals actually experience shared living environments. So over the past year, that has been something Uhuru wanted to gather and say, let's look at this as a living research environment for all of us. So, across 6 residential cohorts that have happened in the year 2025 2026, 62 participant placements have happened, and we began observing and documenting what emerges from everyday life. We tracked indicators that appear naturally in community living because that's one key pillar. The indicators that we tracked across these 6 cohorts were activities of daily living, participation in shared responsibilities, emotional regulation, creative engagement, what were moments of leadership or initiative within the group, communication and interaction. And what we began to see was very encouraging. In the longer cohorts, which were like, say, 26-day cohorts, participants started demonstrating about 85 to 90% of independence in almost all the daily living activities. Now, when I say 85 to 90%, I don't mean to say everybody managed 85 to 90%, but 85 to 90% of the participants managed the daily living activities that were relevant to their ability to do this. In shorter programs, we saw some meaningful shifts that were happening in just a few days. So that itself was a revelation for us. Greater participation, there was more initiative, increased comfort in shared spaces. They were okay to be buddied with each other. I think we tried simple experiments like if they're not in the same room and if the roommate is not the same, how does an adult respond to it? How do they still navigate that space? So, community itself began carrying that learning. And this is when we realized that assisted living is not a program that we facilitate, but it begins to function as a culture of living together. And from that, this emerges. And perhaps that's where the real shift begins when assisted living moves from being something families worry about in the future to something that can be experienced, practiced, and built. Then I think it was useful. So, research does become a very important part of the way we would like to document it. And I think after every cohort, there was a research report that came up where we were evaluating for ourselves to say what can we tweak into the next cohort. So it also became a self feeding document for us to also relook at the way we were designing, be it SOPs, be it curriculums, be it goals. Yeah.
There are some lovely findings, and that's excellent to see, how the shifts can happen, even whether it's a short-term program or a long-term program. Lovely. So, the next thing that I would like to ask, ma'am, is many of the participants of the webinar are also parents, and this question is very relevant for parents. And for many of them, even thinking about assisted living can feel very emotionally overwhelming, very heavy. So, how can families even begin to prepare for such journeys and for this journey?
Yeah, I think it's completely natural for parents to feel this way. For many parents, for many families that we've known of, and for many who may be listening to this, or many families, caregiving has been a long, lifelong act of love, responsibility, and protection, and will continue to be. So, when the conversation shifts to suddenly assisted living, it can feel emotionally heavy. One of the most important and often overlooked first steps is parent self care. So, parents have often spent sometimes decades organizing every aspect of their child's life, taking time to take care of their own, like taking care of the well-being of the child, the therapeutic needs of the child, their health. uh, they've never really thought about themselves. So I feel that it's an essential part for us to start preparing for the future. So when parents actually start thinking about this, they have to first start thinking about what are the support systems that are in place, and how do I start expanding the circle of care, beginning with caring for myself. So I think that preparation for parents unfolds slowly. It's very relevant. Many times, in many ways, families begin to collect information over time. They notice what is working well, what is not working well, what supports are needed. So, yes, it is overwhelming. We really need to prepare for this journey. But maybe the first step, which is what we tell parents, is maybe begin with paying a little attention to yourself. What are those fears? How, I mean, they're all real. How do we navigate those fears? How do we work with it? So I feel alongside and organizations, I'm sure there are many today in the country, but this work with parents to take the parents along and to take care of the parents' psycho-emotional health is the role that all of us in society have to play. So I think, yeah, for parents, it is an emotional question, but we better ask it together soon.
Absolutely. And now that you said that, there's an entire ecosystem that is a part of this, and preparing for assisted living is clearly not just about the individual. It, of course, involves families and parents, like you mentioned. It also involves organizations, practitioners, and of course, neurodivergent adults, young adults themselves. So, how do these different roles come together to make assisted living work and make training in assisted living work?
That's my favorite question, and I love to answer that question because I think this is a question for all of us. Assisted living and models that we are imagining cannot be sustained by one person, one organization, or one program alone. It requires an ecosystem of support, organizations, families, practitioners, neurodivergent individuals, each playing an important role. There is going to be a lot of cross pollination and co location that is required. It's also important to remember that no single model is a model that will work for everyone. We're talking of different families, different communities, individuals. So we are talking of different approaches. So, what we need is a landscape where many models can exist and evolve, offering diverse pathways for support and participation. And in the many models that are existing, how can we start sharing our resources as organizations to make sure that we are able to hold this space for parents? So, for organizations, the instinct, like I said, we will begin with having our things in place. It could be buildings, facilities, funding. But the deeper question is about the kind of environment that's being created. Are these spaces where people truly live, participate, shape daily life, places where, you know, or are these places where people are simply managed through systems? So, organizations, alongside whatever model that we choose as our model for assisted living, there is a lot of scope for us to co-locate and look at operational structures, admission processes, communications with families, safety protocols, review systems, so that we are able to learn from each other. I think for parents, preparation can sometimes feel like letting go, but if the invitation is gentler, if it's about expanding the circle of care, then I think for parents who are a large part of this ecosystem, new capacities will emerge for them in terms of their ability to also get ready for something like this. Caregivers and practitioners, I'm oftentimes amazed at the team for what the team has pulled up in each one of these Uhuru programs. And I feel no amount of pre service training today given would have got the team to really do what they do each time. And I cannot emphasize the success of at least our model rests a lot in everybody enrolling what we're signing up for that 1 week. Now whether that's sustainable energy or not, but I think it at least tells us what are we looking, and oftentimes when I hear the team come back saying when is the next Uhuru, we are looking forward to it, I'm quite sure something has gone right here. So I feel that technical expertise is one. We need a cohort of different types of people who are a part of the system, be it support staff, be it practitioners, be it arts practitioners in our case, sometimes just be people who are great in spaces of care. What it requires from all of us is a relational presence where much of the learning is happening in every day. So I feel the success of a program like this is also when you're a part of everything. Like from 9 to 5, we are all a part of everything. Some of us are a part of everything from 9 to 9. But I think being a part of everything has also now given us enough muscle to say this set of things can be handled by one team. This set of things have been handled by one team. So I think that's an important thing to see how do we build that human infrastructure. And I think the most important voice here in this ecosystem belongs to the neurodivergent adult themselves. For many, adulthood is often postponed by systems that make decisions on their behalf. So parents do ask us, how do we know whether he's okay with this decision that we made? Spaces like Uhuru gives that data back to the parents saying, while you have made this decision, we will tell you after a week how that decision has been received by the adult. So they are, I think, the biggest contributors in a system like this as roommates, collaborators, friends, co-creators. So what we are attempting through Uhuru is not to present any final model of assisted living, but to explore what it means to train, what it means, what all does it mean to bring things together, and in that process, slowly begin to look at it from not from a space of fear about absence to actually growing confidence in how communities can thrive.
Beautifully put, ma'am. And I think, people say that it takes a village to raise a child, and it clearly takes an ecosystem to create spaces like this.
So true.
I mean, many people who are here today, we are a group of over 40 people, and many also looking in live at the webinar, uh, must be thinking, may be thinking that this conversation about assisted living may or may not apply to me or directly to my family. But I think in our conversation, perhaps the more important question is that what role is it that each one of us can play in building a society where neurodivergent adults can actually live with dignity and with a sense of belonging? What would you say to that, ma'am?
I think I'm going to go back to say now. I think this is my more favorite question. Now, I think here we have to pause and say, what is this our relationship with inclusion? The truth is that inclusion is everybody's mandate. It cannot rest only with families who are already carrying so much responsibility. It is something that must be held collectively by society. And each one of us have a role to play, be it an organization, be it just people who may listen to this, or I mean, each one of us have a role to play here. I would believe that for young college students, it's not going to be, don't look at internships as an opportunity to, yes, it's an academic requirement, you do have internships to do, but can college students start thinking about removing some time and doing very simple things like, say, budding an adult, spending some time together, sharing activities, building new friendships. Because I think the question for us is also, what is in this for me? Now, in a relationship like that, it's difficult to know who's receiving and who's giving. So, is it very difficult for people living in apartment complexes today where they have a child or an adult with neurodiverse needs to say, we'll buddy the child and we'll start involving the child into our everyday play? It begins with small steps like that. Educational institutions can definitely create enough opportunities. We are having sheltered workshops, vocational training opportunities. So, from a perspective of building other skills of independent living, of employability, there are beautiful work that's done across the country by many organizations, and I'm sure that will continue to happen as well. The other thing is also workspaces. Like our work has spanned from educational institutions to institutions of learning, care, colleges, corporates, because I strongly believe that every mind has to be polished when it comes to inclusion. To just tell everyone that, listen, we just have to access something that we all naturally have, which is to care. So I'm sure organizations and workplaces can start thinking about creating these environments. It's not that when there is a mandate to say we have a hiring mandate of inclusive hiring, but till that happens and till we understand, till we get ready with it, what are my everyday conversations that are happening? Are we opening conversations around belonging and allyship? Are we opening conversations about collaboration, teamwork, diversity? See, we are a majoritarian society. So if these things are not first tried, and if the majoritarian society does not start seeing the benefit of it, then we can never mainstream the idea of inclusion. Policymakers, legal systems, they also have a very crucial role to play to see how do we support long term living, guardianship alternatives, housing models, and I'm sure things are moving. But perhaps the most important shift begins with something very simple. It begins with you and me, in how we welcome people in our neighborhoods, in whether we make space for difference in our lives at all. What happens when something is unfamiliar? What is my relationship with something that is different? In whether we see neurodivergent adults as individuals with identity, interests, contributions, or just people who need support. They are created through relationships. So I feel that there is everyday heavy lifting that needs to be done. And we can start this where we are today, in examining our relationships, our everyday interactions, my relationship with the word inclusion, my relationship with embracing something that's unfamiliar. So I think, yeah, there is something in this for everyone, because uh, the social currency of how successful a society is by how compassionate, how caring, how inclusive it is today. And in today's climate of the war, I think it's an important conversation for us to say, as people, how do we take each other along? If we crack that, then creating systems for neurodivergent families is very easy. But we have to make that begin.
Beautifully put, ma'am. And I think how do we take each other along is definitely my takeaway from the day. Now, before we move ahead to the questions and inviting questions from the audience members also. I also want to acknowledge that many of the queries that came in while the registrations for the webinar were going on were around legal and financial planning for the future. Now, these are very real, very important concerns that many families carry, and we are very glad that they were raised as well. Several parents asked about issues such as legal guardianship, about financial security, trusts, wills, safeguards to ensure that resources are set aside for their child and they are protected and used responsibly over time. And so in India, legal guardianship can be arranged through frameworks under disability law, such as provisions under the National Trust Act, where a registered guardian or a board appointed guardian can oversee the decision making and welfare of the child where needed. Families may also explore such options such as needs trusts, nominee structures, insurance policies, long term investment plans, disability pensions, and other government's welfare schemes that are already there to ensure that financial stability is there for the future. Now, legal planning for long term care can often include guardianship arrangements, wills, trusts, and documentation of care preferences, which is typically done in consultation with professionals who specialize in disability law as well as within financial planning. Now, this is not an area of expertise for Snehadhara, but we do believe that it is important that families receive guidance from organizations that work very closely within these legal frameworks. So, one organization that we would like to share about is doing extensive work in this field is the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, and particularly their Disability Inclusion and Access team. So we'll share the link for their website over here. I will just put it down in the chat. So if any of you wish to reach out to them for deeper guidance on the matter, anybody who's watching in, the name is Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, and you can definitely reach out to them and specifically also connect with Miss Manmai Sharma, who's a senior resident fellow at Vidhi who works in this area in particular. So, this is just something that we wanted to share given the questions that were raised from the group. To bring our conversation to a bit of a closure, ma'am, thank you so much for all of your insights with us and sharing all those insights with us. Is there a closing message that you would like to give us?
Yeah, a whole hour of chatting with you was fun, and not telling a story is a little difficult. So I'm going to close with a small story. There's a story often told about an old village well. For generations, people in the village drank from that well. It gave water through summers and monsoons, through years of drought and years of abundance. One day, a traveler asked an old caretaker of the well, "Who built this?" The caretaker smiled and said, "No one living today." "Then why do you continue to take care of it every day?" The traveler asked. The old man replied, "Because someone before me cared for something they knew they might never use, and because someone after me will need it." In many ways, the conversation we are having today is just like that. We're not only solving a problem for today, they're about tending a well for future, creating communities, relationships, systems, a society that may help people long after we ourselves are no longer here. And perhaps that's what responsibility across generations really means. Not doing everything alone, but leaving behind a world where care continues. So thank you for making me a part of this conversation, and thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a beautiful story. Um, we would now like to open up this conversation to the audience should anybody have any questions. We hope that the conversation between Gitanjali ma'am and I has opened up new ways of thinking about assisted living, about the way we look at assisted living, not just as a distant solution, but as a process of preparation that can actually begin today. So, if anybody does have questions about the Uhuru program, about anything that ma'am spoke about, feel free to unmute and speak, or put your questions in the chat. We'd be happy to answer them. I did receive a couple of questions in my personal chat as we were talking, ma'am. So one of the questions that came in talked about when is the Uhuru program happening and how can we get connected?
So, for the way we're looking at it for the coming year, there will be 4 cohorts, and the first cohort is happening 1st of April to the 7th. We have closed admissions for the first cohort, and the dates are up here, right? July 25th to 31st, November 28th to 4th of December, and Jan 10th to 16th. So, right after this email, right after this webinar, you would receive an email from us with these dates. And how it typically works, I think Lata has a question. How to initiate the process of enrollment is, one is you pick the cohort that you want to register the child in. We do not take more than 11 to 13 per cohort, and that's a conscious choice that we have made because we would like to engage in smaller groups. So at this moment, these are the dates. Once you write in expressing your interest, there will be someone from the team who will reach out to you to understand what you're looking for. We are an organization in Bangalore, the campus is in Nelamangala, and you will be able to read up about all of this. Also, the mail that comes will share these details. And we speak to the family first. We try and understand what are you looking for. And we encourage a visit to the campus if you, for us also to be able to meet the child. There's a very detailed form that we make you fill, and that form is more for us to say, can we put all the things that we want in terms of just, collecting data on where the child is. And based on the availability of, I think, admissions in each cohort, it's a very straightforward process. How do you decide the roommates as the kids are on the spectrum? There is no, like I said, we make sure that every room has a diverse group of abilities and capabilities. So it would not mean that all nonverbal children are or adults are in the same room. We decide that based on speaking to, I mean, that's the last thing we do once we know how the cohort has been formed. But with some who have been coming back to us, they usually tell us who they want as their roommate. Now, in such a situation, we do honor that. But every cohort has newer adults who are a part of the system, in which case we put that based on what we would feel the right fit for them to work together as a smaller group. The Uhuru is for a week. Are there any shorter ones like 2 days? No, Abhirami, we are not doing shorter ones now. In fact, we're just doing these one week cohorts. Would you be able to guide parents to organizations that care for special needs adults after their parents are no more? I do know that there are organizations which are looking at long term care assisted living programs. You have the India Autism Center in Kolkata, you have organizations, I think Together Foundation, which is in Hosur. Then you have Project Arunima, which is there in Dehradun. So there are organizations which are looking at running a full-fledged assisted living. We are associated with them in various capacities, but you could look up based on the city that you're in to just start initiating that conversation. Do you take children with behavioral issues? Again, Lata, there is never a child who gets rejected in the Uhuru program. But for us, it's important to understand what are the issues that are surfacing, what is it that are issues that you are encountering with the child. uh, the behavioral issues that you see are in an environment that has had the child and you, or in the educational setting that the child is in. It's not that behavioral issues don't show up in the Uhuru program, but today we don't know how the child will be in an environment like this, right? So we do not, there's no basis to reject a child. So, in fact, we don't see assessment reports. We get you to talk to us about the strengths, just for us to understand what is the kind of readiness we need. And that also explains our group size being small. We want them to go through this so that we're able to give you data on how has the child adapted. And from then on, help you make a decision on then what should the choice be for me.
Ma'am, there's a question in my personal chat which
Yes.
says that I'm from an organization in Pune working with children. How can we collaborate?
We are, in fact, heading towards doing a Maharashtra localization exclusive program where we are going to be in touch with disability organizations in Maharashtra. So definitely leave your number and details with us. We would definitely like to see how we can take this. Our whole focus for the next 5 to 6 years is to see whatever has been our best practices and learnings. Our art practices for inclusion is at a very interesting threshold today of a lot that we have been able to look at shifts in the social emotional domain, inclusion domain of beneficiaries that we've been working with. So we will definitely like to be in touch with you and we'll see how we could collaborate. But like, I think there's an organization in Hyderabad whom we're speaking to where they want us to come in, train their teams. So I think we'll be very open to sharing what has worked for us. And should there be a need to co-create this with you, we'd be very happy.
I'd
What is
also
the
like
preferred
to.
age limit to take up this program? I would advise 15 to 16 years has been our youngest. So we would like to keep it at 15 to 16. Uh, the oldest has been 45, 48. So we don't have an upper limit on age.
As people are writing in their questions, I'd also request, in case you are somebody who did not register for the webinar but joined in, do leave your phone number or email ID and name in the chat, or in a personal chat to one of us. Would be lovely to connect with you all as well. Thank you, Lata. There's one more question. I think some of them are messaging me personally. Are parents allowed to stay with their child during the Uhuru program?
No, not at all. I mean, the whole idea is let's collect data on how does the child stay in your absence. So the parents are not allowed to stay during the program, but the initial lineup before you sign up for the program is very clearly drafted out. So there's enough ease and comfort that the parent has. The parent is accessing live documentation on the participation of the child on an everyday basis. So there is enough of holding that we do, and that should help you make this decision. But has any parent needed to stay? The answer is no, they've not needed to stay. And we've got to go down this path to believe what we're saying is true today, because I think a joyful leap of this independence is what I mean. We were very tentative in the beginning as well. Or what are all the checks and balances? How do we look at it? What is the kind of, assisted living proofing that we need to do within the campus? But I think the participants of the last year have only reaffirmed our belief that create an environment, get into this as equal stakeholders, and it will unfold. Do you have a doctor or medical assistants available 24 by 7? No, we do not have a doctor, or we have a doctor on call, but there is no one who is there on campus in that 1 week. But we do have people who administer the medicines if the adult is on medication. And there is a nearby hospital that we have a tie up with. Should there be anything, they are our first point of contact. How does the program go after the first week? We offer it as 4 weeks. These are 4 weeks in the next year that we're offering this program. We do not expect you to uproot the adult or the participant from what they already are. Within their whole learning year, should you wish to try this for a week, these are the dates in which the program is offered.
Can I just add something? I just want to share something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Bharti.
Yeah. One is like my son had been with the cohort last year. And recently I had a conversation with him. Like now we are quite open. So we check with him before setting whatever. So what I heard from him was he didn't have an aversion, neither a yes nor a no. So something he is also trying to understand. And he is like, I like to go, but now I'll finish my exams and then I'll think about it. So it's like he's keen to go back to that place, but at the same time, he's figuring it out what I'm currently doing also. And your story is something that really, it's a big eye opener kind of. Like it is not that only the person who have a neurodivergent or who deal with them need to work with it. It should be done as holistically. That is something which everybody should start thinking. That is what I have felt. And for the parents generally who think about, just you should be have that let go and just be without any thoughts in your mind. You will see wonders happening with the children. That's my personal thing which I would like to share because we have experienced that, and we look forward to more to make it better. As you said, Maharashtra, anything to do in Bombay, I would really like to be a part of it.
Done. Locked.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions that are coming in?
Have we missed any questions that have come?
What is the cost of the program?
The program is priced at 25,000 for the week. There is a sliding scale. There have been occurrences where some people have asked for some support because we function as a trust to the extent possible. That is the cost of the cohort, Prashant. 25,000 for a week. We also open it up at the time of admissions to parents to say, should there be people in your circle of influence who would be able to support the cost of subsidizing it for another child, we need to do this together. So while yes, there is a fixed cost to the program, affordability has never been a criteria where we've had to reject anybody or we would reject anybody. That's also the philosophy with which we work. So I'm hoping that there are many people who want to make sure that they're tending and taking care of this well. Any other questions? Could be questions, thoughts, sharings. I don't want to hold anybody a minute more than 6:30 on a Saturday evening. Please share the names of long-term assisted living communities you have mentioned. One of you, please put the names in the chat.
And just a suggestion, when you do the cohorts or something, at least one you can have during the long holidays time so that they don't miss that routine which they are going. So like if you are having it on the other months, so something on the summer holidays, so which is quite a long one, right? So even if it is 7 days, we can plan without much of this thing. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, yes, Bharti. We, in fact, last time we picked it up during the Dashera holidays, and we realized that for the reverse came true for parents to say holidays are the only times that we get. So we're also trying to figure out what's the best that we can do this. It's also variable of other things that the organization is doing in supporting other organizations and the work we do. So I think it's just been, we said every quarter, let's have it so you can make a plan for it and plan, because that came as a suggestion in the previous webinar saying that, and it will take parents some time to go through it, understand it. We sometimes say you might engage and want to do the July cohort, but you may do your registration and be a part of the conversations from the April cohort as you prepare yourself as well. So yeah.
Then there are questions in the chat, ma'am. Are there only these short-term cohorts, or can students attend the whole year?
Sorry, I was
Are,
distracted by a call.
yes, are there only these short-term cohorts, or can students attend for the whole year?
Now, for the next year, we have these short-term cohorts that are going to happen one every quarter. But within that, if we are like we're hoping there are organizations which want us to come and hold them try out these cohorts. So I'm hoping that if we're able to do that, then we can have it in more cities where we're saying we will help you do the Uhuru model within spaces that are there. So that's our focus as well. So from what we are hosting on campus, these are the dates for next year.
And there's another question, ma'am. Do you have a plan to start assisted living in the future? I
No,
think they
we
mean fully
don't have that
residential.
plan. No, we don't have a fully residential plan at all. In fact, we're saying this should be like a precursor. It's a preparation before you make that choice. And I think our expertise would also be in preparing, helping you think about it, help organizations with SOPs in place. How could we monitor some of these things? What are the questions that come? Hold parent circles, care circles for the parents. I think that's the area that we would want to do and not limit ourselves to an assisted living format. And there are such beautiful ones which are coming up in the country. So I think our collective focus should be, let me pick what I think, because this is a big decision. This is not a decision that we take and then we try and then we say we don't. We also have Alpha. We have Ruby Singhs in Bangalore. We will send you the names, in fact, of this in the email that comes to you. We will put down some of the models. I'm not able to recall. Akshada Foundation is also coming up with a residential format. I'm sure there's one in Chennai as well. Can you suggest some parent-led assisted living centers? The one we know is Together Foundation. I think Project Arunima Dehradun is also parent-led.
Scan in Chennai is also parent-led, which is
Can in Chennai is also parent-led. They're also coming up with something. Yeah.
yes. Then Ramesh has asked if we can access the recorded version. Yes, Ramesh, you will be receiving an email with the recording as well. And if you have registered for the webinar, we'll have your email on record. In case you haven't, just drop in your email so that we can send you the email with the recording.
All right. To everybody who's asking for names of organizations, we're going to put it with their website link and send it to you in that email. That
Yes.
will come to you right after the webinar. Yes, let's just put down the list that we know of and whom we are
Sure.
associated with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any final questions? Ma'am, how do you manage the language issues as we are North Indian? My child is only following Hindi.
Trust me, you don't have to worry about the adaptability. When we're saying it is adaptability, we do have a multilingual team. We speak Tamil, Kannada, Hindi. What are the languages we speak? We do have people who speak
Malayalam.
Malayalam. So
Uh,
language is never going to be a criterion at all. They will find ways in which they can be communicated with. And of course, I think songs, we've had people who speak Marathi, Gujarati. So you don't have to worry about that at all. And we take that if you say that the child follows only Hindi, I think we learned this from organizations in Sweden that work with special needs. They have something called mother tongue therapists. So each time we know that which is the language composition of the cohort, we usually make sure that we're reaching out to people who can speak that language as well. And then that also brings in the design on how we want to introduce our songs. So don't worry about the language. Will help us in near future. Yes, please, Project Arunima in Dehradun, Deepak. We are going to send you an email. You should get these. If it's north, if it is east, please go to India Autism Center in Kolkata. They're coming up with something very beautiful. And yes, looking forward to many of you. I think Hyderabad has Hyderabad. I think there's an organization we're in touch with, which is taking its first baby steps on their first overnighters. So I think for us, it's nice to see. And to the extent that we have any information on organizations or such programs, we have you in our database. We will keep sharing that information so that you could avail of this happening closer to home, maybe. Thank
Yes.
you all so much for being a part of this conversation. Name of the organization in Hyderabad, yes?
The flip side workspace.
Okay, just put it there. Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
with adults, right?
Yes, that works
Okay,
with young adults, children and young adults.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I think they are going to be doing their first overnighter in April. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
So keep the conversations on, be a part of this collective journey. There's a lot that we can all do together. Be rest assured, parents, this is not your individual journey. We will traverse this together. Lots of love. Thank you for registering, for the time that you all gave, for the attention. And I'm hoping from this, our beautiful relationships, connections, and a collective call for action from all of us. If you're here in Bangalore, you wish to come and spend time with us, visit the campus or use the campus for your team trainings, just come and be. Please reach out to us. We would be very happy to share what we have with all of you. Thank you so much, Yash, for holding this space, and looking forward to a restful weekend for myself and all of you. And take care. Lots of love.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this space today. Good evening. Take care. See you all very soon.